Hey, welcome back to my channel. This is Mark Elam telling some stories from my early Christianity with the hopes of encouraging you with things that God taught me that are still principles in my life today. This one, I was out of jail, didn't have to go to prison, on probation. I had so many felonies in the probation, I didn't think anybody would hire me at a regular company. So I was trying to find ways to make money, and I started a little lawn mowing business with a borrowed lawnmower and a weed trimmer, working out of the back of a car, out of the trunk. And I did get customers that would let me mow their lawns, and we were paying bills, and it was week to week though. It wasn't anything special. And God was teaching me so many things. You know, there's so many things that I had to learn about my character and identity in Christ and what a new Christian's supposed to act like and behave. And one of those challenges came early on. Of course, when you're going to church, they start talking about offerings every Sunday. And I realized I wasn't giving any offerings or paying any tithe, giving tithe. I just hadn't really thought about that, but it all of a sudden was a big deal in my heart. God was dealing with me about it. That if I was asking Him for income and more lawns and a growing business, then I needed to be dependent upon Him and putting Him first. So the decision was made. I would start giving tithe money out of each of my week's earnings, which meant I was a cash business. And so every day when I came home, I would set aside the 10% out of that cash and hide it from myself for Sunday, and would do that all week long. And week after week after week, I was shocked to see that even though we'd just been barely getting by week to week, now with giving tithe, we were still paying our bills and everything was fine. Buying groceries, more lawns were coming in, the little business was starting to grow. God proved Himself faithful. I found this scripture in Ephesians chapter 4 that talked about we're to work with our hands. And if you were a thief, you're no longer to steal, but you're to work hard, to save, and to be able to give to others in need. And I thought, man, that's me. It's just speaking right to me, because I had created so many crimes and stealing against banks and people and everything I could figure out how to scam, and that was my old life. And I wasn't to do that anymore, of course. I wanted to give and bless others, and there would be various times where missionaries would come through, or a prayer request for a family, or maybe the pastor would take up a special offering for a family or a speaker, and I wanted to be able to give in all of those. And so I started setting aside an extra $5 or $10 so that I could have to give to others. Then I also found a verse in Matthew chapter 6 where Jesus taught, whenever you're giving, do it in secret and God will reward you. In other words, hide your giving. Don't make a big deal out of it and be proud about it and, brag about it to others, but do it in secret and God would be my rewarder. Well, that sounded great because I needed God to reward me. Every day I was praying and thanking Him for more work and a growing business and thanking Him for blessings. And so when I found this way how to get more reward from God, it was a divine principle that I started putting into practice. I would figure out and find ways to get $5 or $10 to somebody in need, to get it into an offering. I remember the offering times would come around, they'd pass out envelopes, and I wouldn't fill out an envelope. I didn't want them to know I was giving it. I'd put cash in the offering, to a special offering for that missionary or that family. And then I found other ways to get secretively offerings to people so that they didn't know it came from me. This way I could depend completely on God for us to advance and move forward. This has been going on now for several months, and I was so pleased. Our finances were growing. We were paying our bills. I was able to be a tither and a giver. I was listening to teaching tapes from different ministers, and I was listening to a local AM radio station that had faith teachers on there in the morning, 15-minute slots and 30-minute slots, and I was listening to them. And of course, each one of those would end there's little session time with a book to buy or a tape series to order or an offering to give. And I thought, oh yeah, I should be giving to these people because they're encouraging me and teaching me faith. And that became my next step, to start giving $5 and $10 to different teaching ministries that were feeding me during the week, the principles of God. Well, this was growing amount of giving and being a blessing. And lo and behold, as we come into a certain time of the spring, it started raining, and it just didn't stop raining. A couple of weeks went by, just rain every day. I couldn't work. Things were backing up. Third week, all rain. Fourth week, all rain. I remember, boy, I'm not making any money. I'm not working. It's been 4 weeks of rain. I remember saying something to one of the pastors, like, wow, when's this rain going to stop? And they looked at me and figured out he's self-employed. He's not working. They said, well, just keep believing God. It won't last long. It's just a season. I'm like, you're right. Keep my faith up. 6 weeks we went that year with rain. I hadn't worked a day in almost all the 6 weeks. Everything was behind. My car had broken down. I didn't even have the money to get it fixed and back up running. We were down to one car, a car that Lori's father had given her, and we were both using that now. No groceries to speak of. We were down to our last, bit of food. It was Friday morning. I remember I was looking at our finances. We had about, I think, $28 in the checking account. Rent was due, past due, utilities were due. We needed a full set of groceries. I needed my car fixed. It was too much for $28, that's for sure. And I remember sitting there, and all of a sudden this thought hit me. It was a reminder thought. Remember, you were going to send $5 to this ministry and $10 to that ministry, and you never did. I'm like, that's right, Lord. I had a pledge in my heart to send actually $5 to 2 ministers and 10 to another one. And I pulled out the checkbook and started writing those checks. I remember Lori was making breakfast with the last of our breakfast food, and she saw me with the checkbook out, and she said, what are you doing? I was doing what I needed to do for us to survive, because $28 wasn't going to get us through this pickle, and it had been raining. I didn't know when it was going to stop, but I did know I needed to give, and that if I gave, God would be the rewarder and then bless us back. I sealed up those 4 envelopes and got them stamped, ready to go, and we'd eaten breakfast, and it was time. She was going to actually go clean the church. She was volunteering every week, cleaning the church on Fridays before the weekend, the Sunday service. So I said, I'll drive you up to the church where you can do that. And while we're driving to church, we're driving up this hill called Keatonville Hill, and the sky just starts breaking up in front of us, and the sun pops out. And I said, look at there, the sun is coming out. I'm going to go to work. You have to find a ride home, because it looks like I may have an opportunity to work today, and I need to work. I ran home and grabbed the equipment and got out and started getting after some of the lawns that were overgrowing, and I got to work all day, made over $100, which was a good day for me. I remember coming home feeling very good. Finally, the rain had broken and I was making money again. This $100 wasn't going to go far towards everything we had to pay, but it was a start. Things were looking up, and I was filled with hope again. When I come home, I noticed that my car that had been in the yard broke down, was moved into the driveway. I'm like, how did that happen? I know Lori didn't do it. And as I start to walk up, Lori's standing at the door, and she comes out with a big smile, but tears coming down her face. She's holding in her hand an envelope, and then she's pointing to a bag of groceries. In one day's time, when she went and cleaned the church and asked for a ride home, actually our pastor gave her the ride home, and he noticed my car, and he said, what's wrong with Mark's car? And she said, well, something's broke down on it. I don't know. He went to tinkering with it, found out what was wrong, got the part and got it fixed and put it in the driveway and went on back to church to his work. While Lori was there, She had a knock at the door where a lady brought groceries, 2 bags of groceries. And then a family member brought over a check and said, I figure with all this rain, you guys have been struggling. Here, take this check and pay what bills you need to pay. And we were able to pay rent, the utilities, had groceries, had the car back, and now at this $100 was able to, it was such a turnaround. In one day's time, everything turned around. What looked impossible was possible. God made a way. I just sat there in tears, so thankful for what God had done. And for me, you believe what you want, but for me, I knew what had happened. And that morning, I made a decision to keep my commitment to be a giver and sow offerings. I didn't have a way of making it on my own. We were too far behind. I did what was a spiritual principle to give, and the sun burst out. The day turned around. People started giving to us. My car was fixed. Everything was paid. It was like day and night difference. It was a principle that has taught me from then till now, always trust God, believe God, no matter what it looks like. It looks impossible. God has a way if we act upon what he shows us to do. I hope you enjoyed that in a minister's life to you. God bless you.